Hello, everyone. We are in the MOOC SWAYAM course on Nationalism and Constitutional Growth in India, 1858 to 1920. Uh, so far, we have discussed about definition of nation, nationalism, and also the historical evolution of nationalism, mainly in Europe, and how this nationalism as an ideology has been instrumental in not only gaining independence, but also to some extent, uh, the ideology has been abused in many ways. What we'll be doing is part of series of lecture on nationalism. Today, uh, we will be continuing further our discussion on uh, various uh, periodization of nationalism, starting from uh, the beginning of nationalism and then academic uh, discussion and discourse around nationalism, and and then of course the time in which we live, uh, contemporary manifestation and interpretation of nationalism. As I have been stressing on this fact that it would be uh, rather, um, you know, it would be wise to uh, just, write off this ideology from the political landscape. Uh, because of the uh, liberal, secular uh, kind of ideologies taking over, these extreme ideologies like fascism or fundamentalism or nationalism. Um, it has a potential, it has a certain utility, and it is rooted in that exclusivity which we have been kind of trying to understand. uh, by putting prefix and suffix to nationalism, whether that is going to serve purpose, the very gene of nationalism is going to destroy all prefix and suffix to say, because it has that kind of potential, that kind of force. What we'll be trying to understand, the pros and cons, of course, we are dealing with how it is kind of a double-edged uh, sword, which which on one hand is being very fruitful and being very kind of positive, but from the other side it is indeed very destructive. So, as the sword can be used uh, not only for the purposes of killing, but it is also having a utility to prune trees, for an example, or shrubs and bushes, for an example. But it has that potential of destruction as well. So what we will be seeing today, that how this entire theories of nationalism in a way uh, traveled in our times, and how scholars of our times are engaging this ideology, or this idea, this conception, this category called nationalism. So you can see on the screen that the debate from 1990s to the present has been shaped by many global changes which has occurred due to various factors. And I have been talking about collapse of Soviet Union, as well as also uh, the marching of liberalism, the liberal capitalism rather, under the leadership of United States, and it becoming, the bipolar world becoming unipolar, in sense that there'll be only one hegemon who is going to dictate, uh, the world players, that how things will be now run according to their kind of manifestation uh, of ideas and various other kind of practices. Uh, so so because these changes are happening parallel with that, what we call it, uh, information and communication technology revolution. So ICT revolution, that what we call it. So I mean, because of the globalization, because of the free market, because of the interconnectedness, which actually led to rather collapse of Soviet Union, because it was a very insular kind of economy, and and in fact, uh, and it was a very a closed kind of society, to say, uh, you know, and that in a way led to kind of uh, assertion by many of the states. So so globalization in a way connected the world, and it changed the discourse of various kinds heavily, and to some extent, nationalism also got many reshaping due to this factor. So, research in this period shifted focus to changing global conditions, new questions which were coming into discussion, uh, and of course that had impact on the globalization of nations kind of coordinating and cooperating with each other for better gains and better kind of resources and benefits. So there's a collapse of Soviet Union, which led to the establishment of new states, triggering nationalist movements in post-colonial societies. And actually, I have uh, pondered over that question, particularly relating with that how satellite states, in fact, started kind of arguing for liberation and freedom and autonomy as a sovereign nation state, uh, basing on, of course, some of the unique, distinctive kind of their culture or religion or language. So so that their nationalist movements became very prominent due to the collapse of the Soviet Union. And that is also a time where we see a kind of ideology uh, which is in a way pitted against any kind of ideology. This is a potential to be called as um, you know uh, hegemonic ideology, or any kind of ideology or ideas or a school of thought which is you know going going to uh, set the narrative in terms of grand narrative. And in a way, post-modernity or post-modernism uh, tries to address those sort of questions, and in fact, it comes up with something fresh, something new, by bringing into discussion. So postmodernity comes into discussion by bringing new questions, questions of identity, questions of um, powerlessness, questions of empowerment, questions of autonomy, questions of social justice. All those marginalized communities who are in the periphery are now getting some kind of notice, and then they are now becoming kind of mainstream subject of discussion, uh, and hence uh, you know postmodernity to some extent is is also very critical of the modernity project, the very idea of renaissance, that what we call it, or a scientific revolution or industrialization, which led to uh, mammoth growth in Europe and elsewhere. And then, of course, all the superstructure is a byproduct of modernity, is in fact kind of propagated, is a fruit of development, and a victory of liberal ideology or capitalism. So, modernity aligning with liberal slash capitalism, uh, in that way, um, modernity is under scrutiny by post-structuralist scholars, the theory of deconstruction, post-modernity, and many more. Churning. Uh, Within the discipline of cultural studies and other kind of discipline. So, uh, modernity is under attack, and it is it is looked from a critical lens. So various scholars are coming into picture to define various theories in new ways and new dimensions. And there comes one of the great scholar of 90s, that is Zygmunt Bauman. Bauman, primarily a sociologist, uh, has kind of contributed heavily in that scope of critical thinking, where Bauman characterizes even post-modernity as modernity reaching maturity, and and also critically analyzing itself. So Bauman suggested post-modernity was a conscious confrontation with the impossibility of certain aspects of modernity. So modernity was incomplete. Modernity project was having a lot of loopholes, and in a way, post-modernity addresses those questions which were not taken into consideration by the modernization or modernity project to say. So Bauman rejects even the postmodern slogan of replacing the moral with the aesthetics. However, there is still an ethical crisis because within postmodernity, we need help and advice on how to conduct ourselves morally, but we are more unwilling than ever to accept such advice. Bauman, uh, argued that modernity, in what he later came to term its solid form, right, involved removing unknowns and uncertainties. So, modernity in solid form, uh, you know, do not incorporate those unknowns and those uncertainties, right? Bauman adds to that solid form, in a way through the conception that what is called the concept of liquid modernity. So, solid modernity is silent on unknowns and uncertain, and liquid modernity that what Bauman comes up with is a metaphor to describe the condition of constant mobility and change that what Bauman sees in relationships, in terms of identities and global economics within contemporary society. So it is this emergence of new identities, or one can call it multiple identities, multiple ways of knowing things rather than knowing things only from one lens. There are now multiple lens, and these lenses are changing. It's not a static. It and these lenses are used to explain that what was unexplainable or explained only in one way. So liquid modernity kind of sees those mobility in identities and mobility in also power dynamics and also global economics to some extent. So in that sense, Bauman Bauman is a scholar who is trying to understand even the ideology called nationalism is mobile, and because these identities, which are in a way premised on the basis of that what is nation and what is ethnicity, or rather identity markers, those very identity markers are changing, and hence there is change in the very discourse on nationalism. So it's not a very uh, uh, kind of very pure form of nationalism. When I'm saying pure form of nationalism, in the sense of that European, uh, clear cut, definition. But this nationalism is reflexive. It is a postmodern nationalism which is premised on mobile identities. It is premised on conditions of those constant change which is occurring because of the various other occurrences happening in the science and technology, but also in in a very ideational sense as well. So, if we see the post independence state formations. That what we see, that many of the scholars who have been trying to understand, uh, you know, the uh, whether the nationalism has only possibility and potentiality in terms of forming a kind of grand alliance of even diverse groups to fight against colonialism, or uh, nationalism has or nationalism is going to stay further in in other possibilities as well. So what is that kind of character of nationalism in the post-independent times, right? So there comes yet another very critical scholar called Partha Chatterjee, who explored state formations in post-independence, say Asia, Africa, and Central South America, or Latin America. Uh, and Chatterjee distinguished uh, between problematic and thematic planes to analyze the complex relationship between nationalist thought and colonialism. So it's not a very kind of simplistic kind of understanding of the relationship between nationalist thought and colonialism. Rather, it's like the very problematic and the very thematic of nationalist thought and colonialism need to be contextualized, and analyzed in that manner. So, uh, Partha Chatterjee is, kind of, his work, uh, either The Nation and its Fragments, or even critique of, Benedict Anderson's work called Imagined Communities. So Partha Chatterjee writes in response to that, whose imagined communities, or uh, or his work on nationalist thought, and in fact, at various points, Chatterjee discusses nationalism at least at two levels. Um, he argues that in order to understand nationalism as an ideology, we must examine its content. We want to understand nationalism as an ideology, we must examine that what is the content of nationalism. What what is what is ultimately the question, right? And then Chatterjee contends that early writers who tried to understand nationalism, they emptied nationalism of its content, right? They 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 just emptied. They just took out the very content of nationalism. It was rather having a just outer shell without having nothing, is the matter of content, that what Chatterjee believes. Chatterjee sees nationalism at both, the thematic and the problematic levels, and so, and particularly his work uh, in nationalist thought and the colonial world, which was published in 1986. He argued that Indian nationalism was to some extent derivative. I mean, that's a kind of um, Indian nationalism being derivative. That's kind of it's not a original kind of idea or ideology, right? It has been derived. It has been kind of imported, right, and contextualized, right? So it has utility, it has philosophy, it has principles, right? And to some extent, this the very derivative is, having certain changes, right? So it's not like uh, in exactness it is understood and implemented. Rather, it has some possibility. So Chatterjee believes that, uh, you know, I mean, this Indian nationalism is to some extent derivative, but it did not come to its central tenets. Uh, you know, uh, and especially the very central tenets were represented, uh, you know, uh, in the thinking of Jawaharlal Nehru via a straight line, and Chatterjee quotes that sometimes the shortest uh, route between 2 points is a crooked line, right? It's what Jawaharlal Nehru wrote. So still, a hypersensitive Indian academic public lashed on the subtitle of the book, that is called Nationalist Thought and the Colonial World, a derivative discourse. Uh, in fact, Chatterjee was also, in a way, misunderstood, and his question mark in the end of derivative discourse, that was ignored by the academia, uh, and the very question mark has, in fact, some kind of meaning, and and the academia uh, was offended because they believed that Partha Chatterjee seemed to be denying originality to Indian nationalist thought. So Chatterjee believes that the very empathiedness or empadying the content of nationalism, that need to be kind of that need not happen. Rather, when we are even importing these concepts, or there is any kind of derivative discourse, we must see the very content, or the problematic and the thematic, right? So that we'll be able to see the very relationship between that what is called nationalist thought and colonialism. So in that sense, Partha Chatterjee is a very, very remarkable scholar to understand Indian nationalism, and its journey, particularly during the colonial times.